Hi, Analisa Six here with the Sober Curator and the Lady of Leisure to bring you the June 2023 horoscope for the zodiac sign of Libra for sun and rising placements. I did the first seven videos for June and the first half of the zodiac last week. And then I got busy and had some things going on. And so I had to do the next batch today. Today is June 1st. I think it was May 27th when I recorded the other one. So a little bit of a gap. So I'm getting my bearings a little bit, but I think thankfully, Libra, I'm fresh for you. So we'll see how eloquent I am. I've had my coffee. I've had my green juice. I'm doing pretty good this morning. I'm a little sore from some yard work, but overall, I think I'm feeling pretty good. Let's get into the month for you. So starting June out, we've got a handful of things going on today on the 1st. So right now, the sun is at 10 degrees of Gemini. Mercury is at 16 degrees of Taurus. Mercury is no longer retrograde. Yay. It hasn't been retrograde since the 14th, but we were in the shadow for a while. And, now we're kind of moving out of that bubble of energy. However, Mercury is ingressing towards a conjunction with Uranus, and there is an orb of influence happening with that today. So if you're like, Mercury is not retrograde, why am I still feeling like there's complications with communication or technology or plans or things like that? This Mercury Uranus conjunction that's happening at the beginning of June, I think it's exact on the 4th and 5th, it looks like, of this month. Uranus is the planet that revolutionizes and destroys and changes things. It's kind of like the surprise, we're going to mix things up. And so it's not fun always. It's not always fun surprises. It's usually a little chaotic. Uranus is the planet associated with chaos and destruction. And sometimes we need some chaos and destruction to move forward in life, right? I mean, sometimes those things can be fun, but usually they're not. The area that this is happening for the Libra horoscope is the area that represents shared resources, marriage, assets, also death and inheritance, and also sex and creation. So when we have Mercury passing through those areas, we might be planning, talking, working out a lot of things around those themes that I mentioned. It's the house that Scorpio traditionally rules. And so very Scorpionic themes come up. Secrets get revealed in this type of transit. And so if you're a Libra sun or rising person, you might be dealing with your marriage and having to work certain things out. If you're married, if you're not married, or if you are married and you have assets of any kind that you're trying to work out, those are themes. You might be working through investments or refinancing or loans. Like those are things that can come up during this time. Some of you might not have any of those things going on. And so the area of the chart where that can be highlighted are things from the past that have to do with past lovers, past assets, past resources, also sex. So our sexual energy could be enhanced. And if we have any sexual partners, communicating around sex or intimacy can also be a theme when this house is highlighted in the chart. Other things that are going on in this chart, in that area of the chart, is Jupiter is conjunct the North Node at the start of the month in this area. And wherever Jupiter is, it brings expansion and growth. The North Node conjunction kind of can make things feel like it's do or die time. Like this is a time where we really have to figure this out, or we have to expand or grow in these ways, or that something is changing or ending in some way that it's like it just has to happen. Like the cycle is coming to a close, a new cycle is beginning around these themes in this area. Jupiter conjunct the North Node is a signature that sometimes does have to do with drastic change. Before the outer planets were discovered, so the outer planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. In traditional astrology, when we got to Saturn and Jupiter, those planets carried some of the similar weight that planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto do. And Jupiter, being Zeus in the zodiac, had a association with death as well. And so sometimes Jupiter transits, even though Jupiter is considered the greater benefic that's associated with good luck and abundance and good fortune, Jupiter sometimes, when it's coming in to expand our lives, also can be expanding our lives through loss or through some kind of ending. And so this house where it's hitting with the North Node is the house that represents death and rebirth. And so those themes come up when this house is hitting. So if we're losing a loved one in our lives, or maybe we're welcoming someone new into our lives, those things can happen. If you're somebody that's thinking about getting divorced, or on the flip side, thinking of getting married, that can also become a theme in this house. People that are experiencing trial and tribulation in a marriage might be at that crossroads where, are we going to go to therapy? Are we going to talk this out? Are we going to work this out? It's very the Mercury placement here with Uranus. The Mercury-Uranus conjunction, when it happens on the 4th and 5th, might be that aha breaking point where if we're ready to leave a relationship, we're ready to do it. Like, we're kind of like, this needs to happen. On the flip side, if we're in a committed relationship where we're ready to take it to the next level, that could also be part of the breakthrough or the aha moment for you. So it's really dependent on the individual how these things play out in terms of what's happening in your life, because there's general frequencies of energy, but the polarity on whether it's good or bad doesn't necessarily have to do with the planet so much as it has to do with where it's aspecting in your personal chart, and also your own relationship to that energy frequency. We still have free will when these things are happening. So whether something's driving us together or apart, as an astrologer, oftentimes I can see it in the birth chart of an individual, whether something's more about pulling you together or pulling you apart. But in a general horoscope reading, it's really hard, as just giving a general reading to the general public. I can't tell you which way or not, for whoever's listening to this, how it's impacting you on an individual level, because it's so generic. But the other thing about horoscopes is we don't really pay attention to the outer planets. We mostly pay attention to the personal planets. So the main personal planet that is active in this chart is Mercury. And the only real reason that it's valuable to bring up Uranus is that Mercury is making that conjunction here towards Uranus for you at the beginning of the month, and that Jupiter just entered Taurus last month. And so Jupiter is starting this year-long cycle for the Libra individual in this area of the chart, where it brings expansion and growth in this area over the next year. So, like another theme could be if you're thinking of trying to get your credit score in a really good place so that you can take on, assets or buy a house or buy a car, or if you've got debt that really needs to get paid off, Jupiter's here kind of bringing that to the surface, kind of shining a light on maybe some of those things that you want to do or those goals that you have, and supporting you in that. So those are some things going on, starting the month out for Libra. We also start the month out with Venus in Cancer, and Venus is only going to be in Cancer until the 5th, and then she's going to move into Leo, where she's going to be until October. And so where Venus has been passing through for you, Libra, has been in your house of career, and Venus passing through this area is really positive. Venus is also your ruling planet. So this is, an energy that's really positive for you, and Venus is considered the lesser benefic. And so wherever she is, she's bringing abundance and kind of shining a light. So if your career has been an area where there's been a lot of focus for you, and maybe a lot of momentum in certain ways around work, that's because Venus has been there and kind of bringing a lot of energy to that. Once she moves into Leo around the 5th, and she's there for October, she's actually moving into the area. She's joining up with Mars. So you already have Mars and Leo in this area, activating this area. And then Venus is about to join the party on the 5th. This is the area that represents our relationship to friendship circles, groups and associations, political organizations, activism, and community. And so when we have Mars here, we tend to feel a very need to connect with community or friends or be social. But Mars can also kick up some dirt. Mars can kind of cause some conflict here. If we're feeling like we're not totally in sync with our community or friend groups or people that we're associated with, we might be reflecting on that. In Leo, Mars here really wants validation from other people. And so if you're in this position where you feel like you need to network and feel seen by the people you're surrounded by, Mars might be kicking some of that up. There also might be some kind of like friendly competition vibes going on, or a need to prove yourself in your community or your circles in some kind of way. There could also be the opposite, where we feel disconnected from our community. We feel like we're not getting along with people. We feel like this isn't the community for us. So we're reflecting on all of those things, but there's definitely a light being shown in this area. When Venus comes through here, she's coming in to bless this area and to help us find our community. So if you've been struggling in that way, Venus is going to come in and highlight that and say, look, here it is. Here's your community. Here's the people that you're supposed to be surrounded by. Here's the opportunities for networking. And it might feel like it's coming to you and less like something that you have to work hard towards. When Venus stations retrograde, though, which is at the end of July, we might experience some more conflict in this area while she's retrograde, where we're reflecting on our relationship to people and our lives in a bigger way. This house has to do with groups and like groups of friends that are more acquaintance-esque. I mean, some of them can be close friends if we have a pretty tight friendship circle, but our close friends, like one-on-one friends, partnerships, are more of a seventh house thing. And Chiron has been passing through this area of the horoscope. So there is kind of some tension happening in relationships for the Libra individual. But hopefully there's good growth happening. It's also an opportunity for you to heal in relationships. Venus wants resolution. She wants things to heal and move forward and be positive. And so when she's coming into Leo in that area, she's there to help you. She's there to kind of help you find the people that you want to be associated with, or the resolution that maybe you want to have with current people that maybe you haven't had a strong connection with. Like if you had a friendship group that maybe you were really close with and you kind of felt like there was some tension, Venus comes in to want to kind of help smooth that over or make it better in some way, and even work through some of the internal healing process that might be a part of that. And so that's also a big theme for you for June, is kind of finding your community. And back, like, to me, this is something that I think is politically incorrect, and I don't like it when people say it, and it's kind of a red flag to me when people say it. But in the past, it was politically correct to say I want to find my tribe, and now it's not politically correct to say that. And I mean, it never was politically correct to say it, but it was more socially acceptable to say that, right? And so a lot of people, when they have an affliction going on in their friendship house, they'll feel that way. They'll feel like they don't have their place. They don't feel like they know where they belong. And when Venus comes in, she very much wants to help you find that. She wants to help you kind of find where you belong. So you might have, been thinking of that old saying, if that's something that you still think of, like, I just need to find, where I belong or who my community is. And so that's a big theme for you until October, having Venus here for that long. So we're starting that cycle for you on June 5th. Let's backtrack a little bit to what's happening in 3 days. On June 3rd, we have a full moon that's happening in Sagittarius at 13 degrees. And full moons are times that are meant for manifesting things that we want to call in, or releasing things that we no longer want in our lives that aren't serving us. And we look at the birth chart to see what those themes are for us in life, kind of like what's the area that the luminaries, the sun and the moon, are highlighting for us during this time. So the area that Sagittarius falls into for the Libra horoscope is the area of the chart that rules our communication, and also how we process information in our brains, and also how we like to speak that information, disseminate that information. And so for this moon, we're going to have the kind of more like intellectual, areas, or educational areas, academic areas, and also communicative areas highlighted in the chart in a way that might have us reflecting on our values and our belief systems, because Sagittarius also rules values and belief systems, and this moon is in Sagittarius. And so you might be in a position of kind of wondering, are my values and belief systems in alignment with what I say and how I communicate, and how the information that I'm gathering in myself and what I'm passing on, is that still congruent with who I am today? And so it might be something where, if you are in a position of educating others, you might, if you're wanting to manifest more into your life, you might be in a position where manifesting students or more people into your life that you can disseminate your wisdom or communication with might be a theme. If you are in the opposite, where you're a student, and let's say you've been learning a certain modality of something, you might be reflecting on whether you still feel in alignment with that modality. That's something that happens to me quite a lot, where there's methodologies that, like, I'm very well aware as time progresses, science, education, things that we believed during one decade shift and evolve and grow by a new decade, right? Like what we thought was healthy in the 90s diet wise is not the same as today. Like my mom was very into giving us Nutri-Grain bars as kids because that was considered healthy. And now a lot of that stuff is like basically the same thing as eating a cookie. You know, it's like there's a lot of sugar in that. There's a lot of additional ingredients that aren't good for you. And that's just like one example, you know, of like the way things change. And so one of the things about Libra is Libra tends to be really good at seeing both sides of things. You're really good at seeing the truth in this person's statement and the truth in that person's statement. And that's where Libra's passivity and indecisiveness comes from, is you can see the value and maybe the falsity in both ideologies or both concepts, or you know, you have a hard time making a decision because you could see the greatness of both things and maybe you just want both. And you know, there's definitely a lot of Libras out there that have other placements that make you more decisive or maybe less like that. But if you are one of the Libras that has a hard time in being more linear or seeing things from one side, it's because Libra, one of the strengths is being able to see both sides. And so during this full moon, what's highlighted is kind of those themes, the perception of something, the belief in something, and whether or not you are still in alignment with that, and whether you want to lean further into that ideology or that belief system, or whether or not you're moving away into something else or feeling more open-minded towards exploring something else. So those are themes for you. And during the full moon, you know, you can call in more of whatever energy it is around that you want to, or releasing it if it's no longer serving you. Spiritual beliefs will be, you know, kind of brought up, and also communication is highlighted. So if you're, you know, there's the self-talk that we do, and then there's the talk that we do with others. And so if you feel like your communication could be improved upon, whether it's in your own mind to yourself or it's in your actual relationships with others, especially since social circles are getting so highlighted right now, that is a really positive thing for you in terms of reflecting on just kind of how your relationships are affected by the way that you communicate or the things that you share. Libra does tend to be conflict averse or conflict avoidant, which can sometimes harm relationships because you're not being as honest or upfront. Also, on the flip side, if you're a Libra that is very honest and upfront, maybe you struggle with tact. And that might be something that comes up for you during the full moon, of having to work on that. There is a grand fire trine happening during this full moon between the moon, Chiron, and Mars. And so, and mostly Pallas Athena than Mars, but it's a really intense energy that can be really positive for creativity. And again, if you're in an education program or teaching or any kind of thing like that, could be really powerful, like a lot of energy. But for where it's hitting the Libra chart, it could also be really destructive to relationships or friendship dynamics if you're reactive and not necessarily expressing your feelings in a way that is easily received by somebody else. There's a lot of room on the 3rd for you to be extra reactive and easily aggravated by other people and hurting other people's feelings potentially. So that's just something to be mindful of. You know, it might be something where you do need to get something off your chest and have a conversation, but you want to be learning how to be mindful about how you go about that conversation, for sure. Let's see what else we've got going on in the month. So we talked about Venus entering Leo on the 5th, and then on the 11th. So June 11th is a big day astrologically, and I cover most of what's happening in the June forecast video. So there's a separate video that's just about June astrology transits, and it's very general. And that one, I go into each transit for every week, and it's a lot more in depth. I don't do that in the personal horoscopes because I think it's more relevant to you as an individual on your individual chart. But that's kind of why, like, if you want that, you can go get it in that video, where is in these videos, I just kind of talk about the energetic shifts that are happening for you and the themes that are getting brought up. more on the monthly basis. But June 11th is a big day. And one of the things that's happening that day is that Mercury will be entering Gemini, which I'm very excited about because Mercury is a ruler of Gemini. So it's going to be finally out of the Taurus window and moving more into a supported energy that's very constructive for us. And Mercury is going to be in Gemini until June 27th. And it'll be influencing the area of the chart for Libra that has to do with our it's the house that represents things like astrology, things like long distance travel, metaphysical studies, spiritual studies, religion, higher education. So any kind of like academia that we might do after, after or during college, studying abroad, those kinds of things. Also, it's the seeker energy. So if we are kind of in this place where we're feeling like we have the spiritual energy that we're seeking more truth, more wisdom, that's going to be highlighted over this time. So it's up to you on how you want to harness this energy. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're probably a spiritual person. Most people that are into astrology are. And so, if you want to learn some kind of spiritual modality, this is a really positive time to do that. Again, if you're a teacher, this energy is amplified for you. It's really good for teaching. If you're teaching a class and you want to manifest students into your life, this is a good time to network and put yourself out there, especially having Venus hitting that area that represents networking. If you're somebody that is putting together classes or needing students, June is a really good month for you to be marketing and putting that energy out there. So you're definitely supported in that. It's also a really good energy if you want to study abroad or travel abroad. If you're going on any long trips, to other countries or other places, this is really supported for you during this time. After Mercury enters Gemini, we are going to have Saturn stationing retrograde at 7 degrees of Pisces. That's happening on the 17th. I go more into that on the June forecast video, so you can check that out as well. And then we have on the 18th, we have our new moon in Gemini at 26 degrees of Gemini. So on June 18th, the moon is going to be, in that same area that Mercury's in, where we're talking about your relationship to spirituality, religion, culture, kind of this seeker energy of what is all out there. Why am I here? What is it all about? And, if the new moon is about setting intentions and kind of planting seeds towards things that we want to grow. So if you're in an academic program, you probably have a goal on how you're going to finish that program. So setting intentions around your education and learning is really positive. If you're a teacher, and you've got certain goals with teaching, using this as an opportunity to set intentions around that is really positive. If you have travel goals, long distance travel goals, setting intentions around how you want to manifest that is really positive. And then spiritual goals, I think that, this house, representing religion and spirituality, if we have certain goals within our spirituality, like I want to take this program, or I want to get educated in this way, or I want to learn this modality, maybe if you're into yoga and you want to learn something more about yoga, all those types of things, tarot, if you're into tarot, like those are all things that are highlighted on this new moon. So you've got a lot of different things you could set intentions towards and kind of, harness that energy in that way. We're also more prone during a Gemini moon cycle to, especially a new moon, to be more prone to feeling anxious. So doing things that kind of help ground you in your body on this day. And, I think that for where this house is hitting, like reading something, spending time outside in nature, going on a road trip, or, if you are, Libra, I just feel like all Libras love reading and learning, or audiobooks. I've got a lot of air signs that have a hard time paying attention to reading a book, but in terms of like absorbing information or learning something, that's something that a lot of Libra dominant people really enjoy. So that's also another really positive way to spend this little bubble of energy that we have going on. And then, a couple days later on the 21st, we have our summer solstice. The sun's going to move into Cancer. We'll officially be in summer. And we move into Cancer season. So the area that's highlighted again for the Libra horoscope is the area of career. So the sun's going to be passing through the area of career. And wherever the sun is passing through, it brings a vitality and an energy and kind of a sense of life to this area of our chart. So hopefully you'll be getting a big boost of energy where your career is going, headed. If you need to manifest more income or business into your life, this is a positive time for that. Depending on what your goals are with that. And then let's see what else we have going on. Mercury is going to join the Cancer party around the 27th. And so Mercury will be leaving Gemini and entering Cancer. And again, hitting that area of career for you in the chart and really amplifying your ability to network. I think networking and really empowering yourself within what you're bringing to the community or the lives of other people and the work that you're doing in the world is a big theme for you for June. And so I don't know, obviously every Libra dominant person's work is going to be different that's listening to this. Some of you might have work that's really hands off and not public oriented. And if that's the case, you might be inclined to want to connect to the public or network with people that you care about in a different way. If you're a more private person and this stuff isn't really resonating for you, it might kind of have you reflecting on where you lack some of that connection to the community or to being public. And you might feel like there's being more attention brought onto you in the small way that you are operating in the world. And by small, I don't mean that the work you're doing is small. I just mean in terms of your social bubble, if your social bubble is small. But there's other ways that we can put ourselves out there that don't involve people necessarily or interactions with people. And so if you're, somebody that writes papers and publishes them or things like that, and maybe you're not as directly involved with the community, but your information that you provide that will be elevated over the month of June. All right, Libra, I think that June's going to be a pretty decent month for you. There's a lot of momentum. It might be a bit draining and hard for you to find some time to take for yourself. So that's something that I would recommend doing in June, is really carving out some time for yourself, because this chart for Libra is very output. It's very gather information, give information, output at work, output socially, find things to do socially. It's just a very extroverted month. Even if you're an introverted person, it just might feel like your output is a lot this month. So make sure you plan downtime, carve time for yourself, and find space in your day to unwind from whatever it is you're doing that's requiring so much of you. But overall, I think it's going to be a successful month for you, and I wish you the best of luck, and I will see you next month. Have a good June.